The sound of Corbin's truck pulling into my driveway at 11:30 on a Tuesday night should have surprised me. It didn't. Nothing about Corbin Finlor surprised me anymore, except maybe how long it had taken me to notice what was happening right under my nose. I stood at the kitchen window, coffee mug in hand, watching him climb out of that beat-up Ford with the confidence of a man who belonged here. He had a key. Of course he had a key. Fina had given him one years ago for emergencies. Apparently those emergencies happened 3 nights a week now. Wilder? Fina's voice drifted down from upstairs. Is that Corbin? Tell him the sink in the guest bathroom is acting up again. The sink that I'd fixed last weekend. The sink that worked perfectly fine when I tested it this morning. Funny how these problems only surfaced when I wasn't around. I watched through the window as Corbin grabbed his toolbox from the truck bed. Same toolbox he'd been carrying since high school when he and Fina were just friends. 20 years later, still just friends. Still fixing things around our house. Still joining us for Sunday dinners at my mother-in-law's place. Still tagging along on our family vacations. Always there, always helpful, always welcome. The front door opened without a knock. Why would he knock? This was practically his second home. Hey, Wild, Corbin called out, using the nickname that had always grated on me. Fina said something about the bathroom sink? In the guest room, I replied, not turning from the window, though it was working fine this morning. These old pipes, Corbin said with that easy laugh of his. You never know when they'll act up. I heard his boots on the stairs, heavy work boots that left muddy prints Fina never complained about. When I tracked mud through the house, I heard about it for a week. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother-in-law, Helena. Is Corbin there? Such a wonderful man, always there when Fina needs him. You're lucky to have such a good friend. Lucky. Right. I set my coffee down and really looked at my kitchen for the first time in months. Corbin's spare jacket hung on the hook by the back door. His favorite coffee mug sat in our cabinet, the one with the Harley logo that Fina had bought him last Christmas. His reading glasses were on the counter next to the newspaper, folded to the sports section. When had my house become his house? Upstairs, I could hear Fina's laughter mixing with the sound of running water and Corbin's voice. They were having a conversation I couldn't make out, but the tone was familiar, comfortable, intimate. I walked to the mudroom where Corbin's jacket hung and checked the pockets. Old habit from my days as a construction supervisor. Always check what people leave behind. You learn a lot about someone from what they carry. Receipts from restaurants I'd never been to. A hotel key card from last month when Fina had gone to visit her sister, breath mints, and something else. A phone. Not his regular phone. I'd seen that one plenty of times. This was a cheap flip phone, the kind you buy with cash and throw away when you're done with it. I flipped it open. The gallery had 43 photos. 43 photos of my wife, in my house, in my bedroom, in my bed, with Corbin. I stood there in the mudroom, holding the evidence of everything I'd suspected but never wanted to believe. The photos were time-stamped over the past 6 months. Days when I'd been at work sites, evenings when I'd been stuck in late meetings, weekends when I'd driven to Portland to visit my brother, always when I wasn't home, always when Corbin was helping with something. The water stopped running upstairs. Their voices got quieter, more hushed. I heard Fina's footsteps moving toward the bedroom. Our bedroom. I slipped the phone back into Corbin's jacket and walked back to the kitchen, poured myself another cup of coffee, sat down at the table and opened my laptop like I was checking work emails. 20 minutes later, Corbin came downstairs. His hair was slightly messed up, and he'd missed a button on his shirt. All fixed, he announced. Just needed to tighten the connections. These old houses, you know? Always something. Thanks, I said, without looking up from my screen. What do I owe you? Nothing, man. That's what friends are for. Friends. I almost laughed. Fina's lucky to have you around, I said, testing the words. We look out for each other, Corbin replied. Always have. He grabbed his jacket from the mudroom, and I watched him pat the pocket where the phone was hidden. Satisfied it was still there, he headed for the door. See you Sunday at Helena's? He asked. Wouldn't miss it, I lied. After he left, I sat in my kitchen for another hour, thinking, planning. Fina came downstairs eventually, wearing a robe and looking refreshed. The sink's all better, she said, kissing the top of my head. Corbin's so handy. I don't know what we'd do without him. Yeah, I said. He's always there when you need him. She smiled and headed back upstairs. I heard the shower turn on. I opened my laptop again and started making a list. Not a revenge list. Not yet. Just a list of facts. Times, dates, patterns. The kind of detailed documentation that had made me good at my job. Because if there's one thing I learned in construction, it's this. Before you tear something down, you need to know exactly how it's built. And I was about to become an expert in demolition. The next morning, I called in sick to work. First time in 3 years, but I needed a day to think, to observe, to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. Fina left for her job at the insurance company at 8:15, same as always. She kissed me goodbye, told me to rest up, and reminded me that Corbin might stop by later to check on the gutters. The gutters I'd cleaned myself last weekend. I watched from the bedroom window as she drove away, then got dressed and headed to Pike's Hardware. Old Man Pike had owned that store for 40 years and knew everyone's business in town. If anyone had insight into Corbin's routine, it would be him. "Wilder Trenwall," Pike said when I walked in, "heard you were under the weather." News traveled fast in a town of 8,000 people. "Just needed a mental health day," I said. "Actually, I'm looking for some security equipment. Motion sensors, maybe a camera or two." Pike's bushy eyebrows went up. "Trouble?" Just want to keep an eye on things when I'm not around. You know how it is." "I do, indeed." Pike leaned across the counter. "Corbin Finlor's truck's been in your driveway a lot lately. Folks talk." "What kind of talk?" "The kind that says a man ought to know who's got keys to his house." Pike's eyes were sharp despite his 70-plus years. "But that's just old gossip. Probably nothing to it." I bought 2 small wireless cameras and a motion detector. Pike threw in some extra batteries and a knowing look. "Hope you find what you're looking for," he said. "Or don't find it, if you catch my meaning." I spent the afternoon setting up the cameras, one in the living room, hidden behind some books, another in the upstairs hallway with a clear view of the bedroom door. The motion detector went in the mudroom. Then I drove to Corbin's garage. Finlor Auto Repair sat on the edge of town, a converted barn surrounded by abandoned cars and rusted parts. Corbin had inherited it from his father and somehow kept it running, despite having more ambition than skill. His assistant, Liam, was under the hood of a Honda when I pulled up. "Hey, Mr. Trenwall," Liam said, straightening up. He was maybe 25, with grease-stained coveralls and an eager smile. "Corbin's not here. Went to grab lunch." "Actually, I wanted to talk to you," I said. "I'm thinking about surprising Fina with a weekend getaway, but I want to make sure Corbin doesn't have any big projects planned for our house." Liam wiped his hands on a rag. "That's real thoughtful. Yeah, Corbin's been spending a lot of time over there. Says Mrs. Trenwall really appreciates having someone reliable around." "He mentioned what kind of projects?" "Oh, the usual. Plumbing, electrical stuff. Though between you and me," Liam lowered his voice, "I think he likes the work over there better than here. Always comes back in a real good mood. I bet he did. He ever mentioned specific times? I want to make sure I don't interfere with his schedule." "Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, mostly. Sometimes Saturday mornings when you're at those work sites. He's got it all figured out so he's not in your way." "How considerate." I thanked Liam and drove home. Fina's car was already in the driveway, even though she usually worked until 5:30. I checked my phone. 3:45. I parked down the street and waited. Sure enough, Corbin's truck appeared 15 minutes later. I watched him walk up to my front door like he owned the place. My phone buzzed. A text from Fina. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Corbin's going to fix that loose board on the porch." The porch that didn't have any loose boards. I drove to Murphy's Tavern and ordered a beer. Sat in a corner booth where I could think without interruption. The bartender, Tommy Murphy, had gone to school with all of us. He brought my drink and lingered. "You look like a man with something on his mind," Tommy said. "Just work stuff." "Uh-huh." Tommy glanced around the empty bar. Corbin was in here last week, buying drinks for everyone. Said he was celebrating a promotion at work." "Promotion?" "That's what I thought. Far as I know, he's the only employee at his own garage. But he was flush with cash, talking about how his luck was finally changing. I nursed my beer and thought about that. Corbin's garage barely broke even most months. Where was he getting extra money? My phone buzzed again. Another text from Fina. "Corbin says the porch needs more work than expected. Might be here late." I finished my beer and drove home. Corbin's truck was gone, but the porch light was on. Fina met me at the door with a smile and a story about how hard Corbin had worked. "He's so dedicated," she said. "Wouldn't even let me pay him. Said friends don't charge friends." "That's generous of him." "He's always been like that. Even when we were kids, he'd help with anything. Mom always said I was lucky to have such a good friend." Helena. My mother-in-law had been Corbin's biggest supporter since day one, always talking about what a fine young man he was, how helpful, how dependable, how I should be more grateful for his friendship. Speaking of your mom, I said, she invited us for dinner Sunday, said Corbin's coming too. Of course he is. It's tradition. Tradition, like everything else about Corbin's presence in our lives, it had become so routine that questioning it seemed unreasonable. That night, after Fina fell asleep, I checked the camera feeds on my laptop. The motion detector had triggered twice while I was gone. Both times showed Corbin and Fina in the living room, talking close together on the couch. The second clip showed them heading upstairs. I had my proof. Now I needed a plan. I spent the rest of the week gathering more evidence. Photos, timestamps, text messages I recovered from Fina's phone when she left it charging downstairs. A pattern emerged that was so blatant I wondered how I'd missed it for so long. Every Tuesday and Thursday when I worked late, Corbin was there. Every Saturday when I had early meetings, Corbin was there. Every time I traveled for work, Corbin's truck appeared in my driveway within an hour of my departure. They'd been careful about the physical evidence, but careless about everything else. Fina's sudden interest in new lingerie, her improved mood on the days Corbin visited, the way she'd started suggesting I work more overtime or take on projects that required travel. By Friday, I had enough documentation to confront them, but confrontation wasn't what I wanted. I wanted something more permanent, something that would make sure this never happened again. I wanted them to understand exactly what they'd lost. Sunday dinner at Helena's was going to be interesting. Helena Marin lived in the kind of house that announced old money from 3 blocks away. Victorian architecture, manicured gardens, and enough family portraits to stock a museum. She'd inherited it from her parents, along with the attitude that came with being the town's unofficial aristocracy. I'd never been good enough for her daughter. Too blue-collar, too direct, too willing to speak my mind. But Corbin? Corbin was perfect in her eyes. Polite, deferential, always ready with a compliment about her cooking or her decorating. Sunday dinner had been a monthly tradition since Fina and I got married. Helena would cook enough food for an army, invite half the neighborhood, and spend the evening holding court from her position at the head of the table. Corbin had been part of these dinners from the beginning. Practically family, Helena always said. Such a good influence on everyone. I arrived early, carrying the bottle of wine Helena had specifically requested. Expensive stuff that would sit unopened while she served her homemade sweet tea and complained about how young people didn't appreciate quality anymore. Wilder, dear, Helena said, accepting the wine with the same enthusiasm she'd show for something utterly unappealing. You look tired. Are you getting enough rest? Just busy with work? Well, that's admirable, I suppose, though Corbin manages to stay busy and still make time for the people who matter. Right on cue, Corbin's truck pulled into the driveway. I watched through the lace curtains as he climbed out, straightened his shirt, and grabbed a bouquet of flowers from the passenger seat. Always the perfect guest. Fina's car appeared a minute later. She'd driven separately, claiming she needed to stop by the office first, on a Sunday, for an insurance company that was closed weekends. They walked up to the house together, Fina's hand briefly touching Corbin's arm as they talked. Casual contact that looked innocent unless you knew what to watch for. Corbin, sweetheart. Helena's voice rose 3 octaves as she opened the door. And those beautiful flowers, you spoil me? Nothing but the best for you, Mrs. M., Corbin replied, using the nickname that made Helena giggle like a schoolgirl. Fina hugged her mother and shot me a quick smile. Sorry I'm late. Work stuff. On Sunday? I asked. You know how it is. Deadlines don't respect weekends. Helena ushered everyone into the living room while she finished dinner preparations. Corbin settled into the chair that had somehow become his over the years, while Fina perched on the couch beside me. How's the garage business? I asked Corbin. Can't complain. Staying busy. Actually picked up some new clients recently. Word of mouth, you know? That's great. Must be nice to have extra income. Something flickered across Corbin's face. Yeah, well, good work speaks for itself. Helena called us to dinner before I could pursue that line of conversation. The dining room was set for 4, with Helena's best china and enough silverware to perform surgery. She'd made pot roast, Corbin's favorite, along with enough side dishes to feed half the town. Corbin, you sit here next to me, Helena commanded, patting the chair to her right. I want to hear all about your week. I ended up across from Corbin, with Fina between us. Perfect positioning to watch their interactions without being obvious about it. Helena dominated the conversation for the first 20 minutes, updating us on neighborhood gossip and her ongoing war with the Homeowners Association. Then she turned her attention to Corbin. I drove past Wilder and Fina's house yesterday, she said. Saw your truck there again. You're so good to help them with those repairs? Just being neighborly, Corbin replied. Old houses need constant attention. Unlike some people who seem too busy with work to notice what's happening in their own homes, Helena added with a pointed look at me. I've been traveling a lot lately, I said. Good thing Corbin's around to help out. Exactly, Helena beamed. Fina's lucky to have such a reliable friend, someone who's always there when she needs him. Yes, I said slowly. He's very attentive. Fina shifted in her chair. Corbin's been wonderful. I don't know what I'd do without him. Well, you'll never have to find out, Corbin said, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. I'm not going anywhere. The gesture lasted a few seconds too long. Helena didn't notice, but I did. So did Fina, who pulled her hand back with a nervous laugh. More wine? I asked, reaching for the bottle I'd brought. Oh, let's save that for a special occasion, Helena said. I made fresh tea. Of course she did. The conversation continued through dessert, with Helena praising Corbin's work ethic, his kindness, his devotion to family. She managed to work in several subtle criticisms of my own shortcomings while building Corbin up as the ideal man. You know, Helena said as she served coffee, I sometimes think Fina would have been better off with someone more like Corbin, someone who understands the importance of being present. Mother, Fina said sharply, I'm just saying, dear, marriage requires attention, commitment, being there for each other. You're absolutely right, I agreed. Being there is everything. In fact, I've been thinking a lot lately about presence, about who's really there, and when, and why. Corbin's coffee cup rattled against his saucer. I mean, I continued, it's fascinating how some people manage to be so available, so ready to help at a moment's notice, almost like they're anticipating the need. That's just good friendship, Helena said. Is it? Or is it something else entirely? The room went quiet, except for the ticking of Helena's grandfather clock. Fina was staring at her dessert plate like it held the secrets of the universe. What are you getting at, Wilder? Corbin asked. His voice was steady, but I caught the tension underneath. I smiled and pulled out my phone, set it on the table next to my coffee cup. I'm getting at the fact that I know exactly how present you've been, Corbin, and where, and when, and with whom. Helena frowned. I don't understand. Let me clarify, I said, opening the photo gallery on my phone. See, I've been documenting some of Corbin's repair work, very thorough documentation. I turned the phone so they could all see the screen. The first photo showed Corbin's truck in my driveway on a Tuesday afternoon when I was supposedly at work. The timestamp was clearly visible. This is from last week, I explained. Tuesday, 2:15 p.m. I was supposed to be in Portland, but my meeting got canceled. Imagine my surprise when I drove home and found Corbin's truck there. Fina's face had gone pale. Wilder? Oh, but that's just the beginning, I interrupted, swiping to the next photo. This one's from Thursday, 3:30 p.m. Another repair session, I assume? Helena was looking confused. I don't see what's wrong with... Here's where it gets interesting, I said, switching to the camera footage I'd saved to my phone. This is from inside our house. Living room camera, Thursday afternoon. The video showed Corbin and Fina on our couch, kissing. Helena's coffee cup hit her saucer with a sharp clink. And this, I continued, swiping to another clip, is them heading upstairs, to our bedroom, for some very intimate repair work. Helena made a sound like air escaping from a balloon. Corbin was frozen in his chair, staring at the phone like it was a venomous snake. Wilder, please, Fina started. Please what? Please pretend I didn't see my wife and my friend using my house as their personal hotel. Please ignore the fact that you've been lying to me for months. I stood up and walked around the table, still holding the phone. You want to know the best part? I have hours of this footage. Dozens of photos, text messages, even financial records showing how Fina's been giving Corbin money from our joint account. That last part was a guess, but Corbin's reaction confirmed it. You've been paying him, I said to Fina. Actually paying him to sleep with you in our bed while I'm at work. That's not an affair, sweetheart. That's prostitution. Helena stood up so fast her chair toppled backward. How dare you speak to my daughter that way? How dare I? I laughed. Your wonderful Corbin has been screwing your married daughter for months, taking money for it, and you're mad at me for pointing it out? There has to be an explanation. There is, I said, turning back to Corbin. You want to explain it to her? Tell Helena how you've always been there for Fina, how you've been such a good friend. Corbin's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. No? Then let me explain. I addressed Helena directly. Your precious Corbin has been using the key Fina gave him to enter our house whenever I'm not there. He's been sleeping with your daughter, taking money from her, and laughing about what a fool I am behind my back. That's not... Fina tried to interrupt. Yes, it is, I said firmly. And here's the part that's really going to upset you, Helena. They've been planning this for months. waiting for the right time to tell me they're in love, waiting for the right time to ask for a divorce, waiting for the right time to humiliate me completely. I pulled out a folded piece of paper from my jacket pocket. This is a draft of the letter Fina was planning to give me. I found it in her car last week. Want me to read it out loud? Fina lunged for the paper, but I stepped back. Dear Wilder, I read. I've found someone who truly understands me, someone who's always been there for me, someone who makes me feel alive again. Corbin and I are in love, and we're going to be together. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive us and let us go peacefully. Helena sank back into her chair. Fina? Is this true? Fina was crying now, but I wasn't done. The really beautiful part, I continued, is how they plan to frame this as some great love story. Childhood friends who found their way back to each other. Star-crossed lovers who couldn't deny their feelings anymore. Very romantic, except for the part where they're both lying, cheating parasites. Stop it, Corbin finally spoke. Just stop. Stop what? Telling the truth? Showing everyone who you really are? I turned to Helena. You want to know why Corbin's always been so helpful? It's because he's been planning this for years, working his way into our lives, making himself indispensable, waiting for his chance. Helena was staring at Corbin like she'd never seen him before. Is this true? Corbin looked around the table desperately. Mrs. M, I can explain. Explain what? How you betrayed my trust? How you used my home as a meeting place for your affair? It's not like that. Then what is it like? I demanded. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been playing a very long game, and you almost won. The room fell silent, except for Fina's quiet sobbing and the relentless ticking of that grandfather clock. Almost, I repeated. But here's the thing about games, Corbin. Sometimes the other player figures out the rules. I put my phone back in my pocket and looked around the table one last time. Dinner was lovely, Helena. Thank you for the hospitality. And thank you for helping me understand exactly where everyone's loyalties lie. I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. Oh, and Corbin, you might want to find a new place to park your truck. My driveway is no longer available. I left them sitting there in Helena's perfect dining room, surrounded by the wreckage of their perfect little deception. The real fun was just getting started. Word travels fast in a small town, especially when it involves 3 families that have lived here for generations. By Monday morning, half the town knew that Wilder Trenwall had caught his wife cheating with Corbin Finlor. By Tuesday, they had the details. By Wednesday, they were taking sides. I went to work Monday morning like nothing had happened. Let my crew see that I was steady, reliable, unchanged by the drama. Construction workers respect that kind of composure, and I needed allies. Heard you had some excitement over the weekend, my foreman Dave said during our morning coffee break. Oh, nothing I couldn't handle. That Corbin always seemed like a snake to me. Too smooth, you know? Yeah, well, sometimes it takes a while to see people for who they really are. Dave nodded. You need anything, boss, just say the word. The crew's got your back. That meant something in a town like this. Construction workers talked to plumbers, who talked to electricians, who talked to shop owners. The network of working men who kept the town running had decided I was the wronged party. But Helena's social circle was telling a different story. I found out Tuesday afternoon when I stopped by Pike's Hardware for supplies. The old man was restocking shelves, but his expression was troubled. Heard Helena Marin's been making the rounds, Pike said without preamble. Oh? Claims you set up some kind of elaborate trap, says you've been spying on your own wife, violating her privacy, making it sound like you're the villain in all this. I wasn't surprised. Helena had spent 40 years perfecting the art of social manipulation. She'd never admit her precious daughter was capable of betrayal. What's the general consensus? Split down the middle, mostly. The working folks see it your way, the country club crowd's buying Helena's version. Gonna get messy before it gets better. That afternoon, I drove past Corbin's garage. A handwritten sign on the door read, "Closed for family emergency." His truck wasn't there, and neither was he. Fina had called in sick to work Monday and Tuesday. When I got home Tuesday evening, her car was gone. So were most of her clothes and several pieces of jewelry I'd given her over the years. She'd left a note on the kitchen table. Staying at Mother's until we can work this out like adults. We need to talk. Adults. Right. Wednesday morning brought the first real consequence. I was reviewing blueprints at the job site when my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Trenwall, this is Janet Pierce from Coastal Insurance. I'm calling about your homeowner's policy. Fina's company. This was going to be interesting. What can I do for you, Ms. Pierce? Well, sir, we've received some concerning information about potential surveillance equipment in your home. Equipment that might have been used to record people without their consent? Is that so? Yes, sir. In Maine, recording someone in a private residence without their knowledge can be a felony. We need to discuss whether this affects your coverage. I almost laughed. Helena and Fina were trying to turn my security cameras into a legal issue. Ms. Pierce, those cameras were installed in my own home to monitor my own property. Last I checked, that was perfectly legal. Well, yes, but if other people were recorded without consent, then they shouldn't have been in my house without permission. There was a pause. I'm not sure I understand. The people on those recordings were there without my knowledge or consent. They used a key I didn't authorize to enter my home while I was away. If anyone committed a crime, it wasn't me. Another pause, longer this time. I see. Well, we'll need to review this further. You do that, and while you're reviewing, you might want to check your employee handbook. I'm pretty sure sleeping with customers' husbands while using company time to coordinate the meetings violates a few policies. The line went quiet for 10 seconds. Thank you for your time, Mr. Trenwall. We'll be in touch. They wouldn't be in touch. Fina had just made her work situation very complicated. Thursday brought a visit from Helena herself. I was replacing a broken fence post when her Cadillac pulled into my driveway. She climbed out wearing her best church dress and the expression of a woman preparing for battle. We need to talk, Wilder. About what? About this ridiculous situation you've created. About how we're going to fix it. I set down my hammer and gave her my full attention. I created this situation? You know what I mean. This public humiliation. This vindictive behavior. It's beneath you. What would you have preferred, Helena? That I pretend not to notice my wife was cheating on me in my own house? I would have preferred you handle it privately, like a gentleman. The way Corbin handled his friendship with Fina, privately? Helena's composure cracked slightly. That's different. How? Corbin and Fina have a connection you never understood. They've been close since childhood. What happened between them was natural. Natural. I repeated the word like I was tasting something foul. Breaking into my house to be intimate with my wife was natural. He didn't break in. Fina gave him a key. Fina gave him a key to my house without asking me, to facilitate an affair. And you think that's natural? Helena straightened her shoulders. I think Fina deserves to be happy. And I think you've been a selfish, neglectful husband who drove her into another man's arms. There it was. The real Helena, stripped of her social niceties. So this is my fault? If you'd been the husband she needed, none of this would have happened. I picked up my hammer and went back to work on the fence post. You know what, Helena? You're absolutely right. She blinked, clearly not expecting agreement. I should have been a better husband, I continued, driving the post deeper into the ground. I should have paid more attention. I should have noticed when my wife started lying to me. I should have questioned why my friend needed to be in my house 3 times a week. Each sentence was punctuated by a blow from the hammer. I should have realized that giving someone a key to my house meant giving them permission to use my bed. I should have understood that helping with repairs was code for adultery. I should have been smart enough to see that my mother-in-law was covering for both of them. Helena's face was getting red. Now you listen here? No, you listen. I set the hammer down and faced her directly. I was a good husband to your daughter. I worked hard, paid the bills, treated her with respect, and trusted her completely. The only thing I did wrong was believe that she had the same respect for me. Respect is earned. You're right again, and Fina earned my respect for 8 years, right up until she decided to throw it away for your precious Corbin. Corbin is a good man. Corbin is a parasite who's been living off my generosity while sleeping with my wife, and you've been enabling both of them because you never thought I was good enough for your daughter. Helena's mouth opened and closed like she was trying to speak, but couldn't find the words. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. Fina can stay with you as long as she wants. She can have Corbin over for dinner every night. You can all pretend this is some beautiful love story instead of a sordid affair, but I'm done pretending along with you. What does that mean? It means the divorce papers will be filed next week. It means Fina can explain to a judge why she used marital assets to pay her boyfriend. It means Corbin can explain why he had a key to my house and 43 photos of my wife on his burner phone. Helena went pale. You can't prove? I can prove everything. Photos, videos, financial records, text messages. All of it legal, all of it admissible, all of it very embarrassing for everyone involved. I picked up my tools and started walking toward the house. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to handle this privately, like adults. Helena stood in my driveway for another 5 minutes, staring at the house like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Then she got back in her Cadillac and drove away. Friday morning, Fina called. We need to talk, she said. Face to face. About what? About ending this marriage with some dignity intact. Whose dignity are you worried about? Everyone's. This doesn't have to be ugly, Wilder. It's already ugly, Fina. You made sure of that when you gave Corbin a key to our house. I know you're angry. I'm not angry. I'm done. There's a difference. Please, just meet with me, one conversation, then you can do whatever you want. I thought about it. One last conversation might be useful. A chance to make sure she understood exactly what she'd lost. Fine. Saturday morning, 10 a.m., Murphy's Tavern, public place, neutral ground. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Fina. You might not like what I have to say. Saturday was going to be interesting. Murphy's Tavern on Saturday morning was the closest thing our town had to neutral territory. Too early for the serious drinkers, too late for the coffee crowd, just right for conversations people didn't want overheard at home. I arrived first and took a booth in the back corner where I could see the door. Tommy Murphy was behind the bar, pretending to read a newspaper while obviously waiting for the drama to unfold. Fina walked in at exactly 10 a.m., wearing a blue dress I'd bought her for her birthday last year, and the expression of a woman who'd spent considerable time preparing for this conversation. She'd always been beautiful, but today she looked fragile, uncertain in a way I hadn't seen since we were dating. Thank you for coming, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. Coffee? Tommy called from behind the bar. Please, Fina replied. Black. I already had mine. We sat in silence while Tommy brought her cup, then retreated to a respectful distance. You look tired, Fina said finally. I've been busy. Divorce paperwork, security upgrades, changing locks. You know how it is. She winced. It doesn't have to be like this. Like what? Hostile, vindictive. We can end this marriage without destroying each other. I sipped my coffee and studied her face. What did you have in mind? A quiet divorce. No fault. We split everything fairly and move on with our lives. Fairly? Yes. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts. We divide it all 50-50 and start over. And Corbin? Her composure slipped for just a moment. What about him? Where does he fit into this fresh start? That's not your concern anymore. Actually, it is. See, Corbin used my house to conduct his business. He has photos of my wife stored on equipment he brought into my home. He accepted payment from our joint account for services rendered. That makes it very much my concern. Fina's face went pale. You can't prove... I can prove all of it. I pulled out a manila folder and set it on the table between us. Bank records showing regular cash withdrawals from our account, always on days when Corbin's truck was in our driveway. Text messages between you two discussing payment and scheduling. Photos from his phone showing our bedroom. I opened the folder and spread out the first few pages. Fina stared at them like they were written in a foreign language. The interesting thing, I continued, is the timeline. This wasn't a sudden affair, was it? You've been planning this for over a year. That's not true. Really? Because according to these text messages, you and Corbin started discussing when to tell Wilder last spring. You've been setting money aside in a separate account since January. You even looked at apartments together last summer. Each revelation hit her like a physical blow. She'd underestimated how much evidence I'd gathered. The house key, the repair schedule, the convenient work trips that kept me out of town, you orchestrated all of it. This wasn't passion, Fina. It was a business arrangement. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You wanted out of our marriage, but you also wanted to keep the lifestyle, so you found a way to have both. Corbin got regular income and access to a house he could never afford. You got excitement and validation. Everyone won except the fool paying for it all. Fina was crying now, but I wasn't finished. The really beautiful part is how you got your mother involved. Helena's been covering for you both, making excuses, redirecting suspicion. She knew exactly what was happening. She didn't know. She knew. The dinner invitations that always included Corbin, the comments about what a wonderful friend he was, the constant criticism of my work schedule, she was running interference while you two used my house as your personal hotel. I leaned back in my seat and watched her process the full scope of what I'd uncovered. So, here's what's going to happen, I said. You can have your divorce. No fault, just like you wanted. But the financial settlement is going to reflect some adjustments. What kind of adjustments? The money you gave Corbin comes out of your half. The damage to my reputation and my home life gets factored in. The cost of new locks, security systems, and legal fees gets deducted. When it's all calculated, you'll be lucky to walk away with 20%. You can't do that. I can do exactly that. Because unlike you, I have documentation for everything. Receipts, bank records, witness statements, a paper trail that shows exactly how our marriage ended and who was responsible. Fina wiped her eyes and tried to regain her composure. What do you want, Wilder? Really? I want you to understand what you threw away. I want you to realize that you had a husband who loved you, trusted you, and would have done anything for you, and you traded all of that for a mechanic with a key to our house? I never meant for it to happen this way. Yes, you did. Every choice you made, every lie you told, every time you gave Corbin access to our home, it was all deliberate. You just thought you were smarter than me. The tavern door opened and Corbin walked in. He looked around nervously, spotted our booth, and walked over like a man approaching his own execution. Fina said you wanted to talk. He said, not quite meeting my eyes. Sit down, Corbin. Let's all have a conversation. He slid into the booth next to Fina, and I noticed how she automatically moved away from him. Interesting. So, I said, how long have you two been planning this? Planning what? Corbin tried to sound confused. The affair, the money, the divorce. The whole elaborate scheme to make me look like a neglectful husband while you played house with my wife. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Because I have photos, Corbin, lots of photos. Some from your phone, some from my security cameras. Want to see them? His face went white. You can't use those. Actually, I can. They were taken in my house, which means I have every right to them, and they tell a very interesting story about how you've been spending your afternoons. I turned to Fina. Did you tell him about the money? How I know about every payment you made? How I can prove he was essentially working as your personal escort? Stop it, Fina whispered. Stop what? Telling the truth? Isn't that what you wanted? An honest conversation about our marriage? Corbin was looking around the tavern like he was planning an escape route. Look, man, if this is about money, it's not about money. It's about respect. It's about trust. It's about two people who took advantage of my generosity and thought I was too stupid to notice. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. Here's what's going to happen. You're both going to disappear from my life completely. No contact, no messages, no driving past my house to see how I'm doing. You're going to take your little love story somewhere else and leave me alone. That's fine, Fina said quickly. We can do that. In return, I won't share these photos with everyone in town. I won't send copies to Corbin's customers or Fina's coworkers. I won't post them online or mail them to Helena's bridge club. Corbin exhaled in relief, but I wasn't done. However, if either of you ever tries to contact me again, if you spread lies about what happened, if you try to make me look like the villain in this story, all bets are off. Every photo, every video, every piece of evidence I have goes public. Understood? They both nodded. Good. Now get out of my sight. Fina stood up first, then Corbin. They walked toward the door without looking back, and I noticed they weren't holding hands. The pressure was already cracking their perfect romance. Tommy Murphy came over with a fresh cup of coffee. That was something, he said. Yeah, well, sometimes you have to make things clear. You really have all those photos? Every single one. Tommy nodded approvingly. Good for you. Those two had it coming. I sat in that booth for another hour, drinking coffee and thinking about the future. For the first time in months, it looked pretty good. The house would be quiet without Fina, but it would also be honest. No more wondering where she really was or who she was really with. No more pretending that Corbin's constant presence was normal or welcome. No more lies. I paid my tab and walked out into the morning sunshine. Across the street, I could see Helena's Cadillac parked outside the post office. She was probably telling anyone who would listen about how badly I'd treated her daughter. Let her talk. In a town this size, the truth always came out eventually, and I had plenty of truth to go around. My phone buzzed with a text from Dave, my foreman. Crew wants to buy you a beer tonight. Celebrate your freedom. I texted back, sounds perfect? It was time to start living again.